please hit the subscribe button flashing on the screen. Also, drop in your comments as to what else do you all want to see in our podcast episodes.
क्योंकि कुछ चीज़ें बनाने के लिए यू हैव टू बर्न फ्यूल, यू हैव टू ट्रांसपोर्ट के लिए यू हैव टू बर्न फ्यूल अगेन. So there's some emissions happening all around the process. So at the end of the time, when you get the particular product, some energy has been consumed, some carbon has been released into the environment, which is the carbon footprint of that particular thing.
Okay.
So I'll give you a very, very simple example with how natural materials are very close to being carbon neutral. So there's the beautiful material which I am fascinated with, which is lime. So उसका एक cyclic nature that I have mentioned some time back is that you know how lime is mined. 2-3 sources है, shell lime से भी बनता है, mountain से भी you can. It's a finite material, but how it achieves this cyclicity is एक तो mine होता है. At that time it's calcium carbonate, CaCO3. So after mining it is kind of set up into kilns, वहाँ पे वो burn होता है. तो बर्निंग के प्रोसेस में वो उसके अंदर का CaCO3 का CO2 है that is released. So carbon dioxide is released into the atmosphere during the burning process. Then it is left with quicklime, which is calcium oxide, CaO. So now this calcium oxide when we procure as quicklime and you know उसको पानी से मिलाना पड़ता है, वो heat up हो जाता है. It gives you slaked lime. So slaked lime is a particular thing जो हम use करने वाले हैं अपने building construction में. And this slaked lime, which is calcium hydroxide, then you add sand to it, you add other ingredients to it, and say you plaster it or you use it as a mortar. So once it is there onto your walls, it kind of starts setting. So this process of setting happens when it is reacting with the atmospheric carbon dioxide. So remember the CO2 that it released, it's kind of taking it back. So in this whole process, it's kind of getting back to being CaCO3, which is calcium carbonate. जहाँ से वो शुरू हुआ था वहाँ पे वो ख़त्म होता है. It's like making stone on your walls again.
Correct.
So and this is a process जो ये life भर करता रहता है. मतलब ये 1-2 साल का नहीं है, वो करता रहता है 20 साल में. इसीलिए ऐसे बोलते हैं कि जहाँ पे सीमेंट का लाइफ ख़त्म होता है वहाँ पे चूने का लाइफ शुरुआत होता है. So
that's very well put out and explained, very well summarized
thing.
Again, I'm very fascinated by this life cycle of I never knew that lime had such a quality. What role do architects and interior designers play when it comes to this kind of a practice?
So एक तो ये है कि जैसे हमने बताया कि पहले तो लोग खुद का ही घर बनाते थे. People used to build with their own set of skills, which was time tested. Only after the architect came in the picture is when things started kind of changing, unsettling. Of course, there was it was to cater a certain population who were working on a different context also. But an architect actually changed the whole system. And I think it is our responsibility as architects to kind of realize our mistakes and whatever we have done and bring it back to its original stage, whilst appreciating and understanding हमारी खामियाँ, हमने क्या किया है और कैसे sustain करना है तो क्या करना चाहिए, so that we don't mess up the whole thing for our future generations.
So architects have this responsibility on their hands.
Of course, not only architects, even the people who are staying in cities. So now we are creating a pakka ghar ka inspiration to them, that they are shifting from their natural material houses to concrete houses or the cement. So even government of us are giving subsidies for the pakka ghar and all. So it is kind of promotion.
It's actually very interesting to see that what we call pakka is technically has a lifespan of 60 years only.
Okay.
मतलब 60 years तो हमारे आजकल के building also don't last. They are pulled down for redevelopment and all of that.
30 to
which
40
we know,
years
which
maximum.
we all are, it's common knowledge. But then हमारे गाँव के घर अभी तक है 150 years,
200 years.
They have seen 3 generations, 4 generations like that. और उनको हम कच्चा मकान बोल रहे हैं कि क्योंकि वो मिट्टी का बनाया है या ऐसे मटेरियल से बनाया है जो जिसका फेथ नहीं है लोगों पे, लोगों का उस पे, बट एक्चुअली इट इज गिव सर्विंग यू मोर.
So it's kind of marketing have played a very big role, and somewhere we all are a part of it, and we are the one who are creating aspirations to the people who are still living a sustainable life. Like we are showing them ki this is the pakka ghar, or this is the a real future where they want to convert their houses. सीमेंट के घर बनाने हैं उनको, मिट्टी के घर छोड़ के उनको स्लैब के घर बनाने हैं, whereas they have a high, मतलब heavy rains in their region, but then still they want to go for the terraces. They don't want to stay in their local region specific houses.
The sloped roofs and everything.
Somehow they do tiling all over the houses from exterior to an interior also. It's actually making the house non-breathable. But they are not understanding it.
कि जो प्रोसेस तुम फॉलो कर रहे थे दैट वाज मच बेटर फॉर दैट रीजन देन गोइंग विद द यू नो द सिटीज आर्किटेक्चर सॉर्ट ऑफ अ थिंग.
And fun part is when we actually interview the people who are actually stayed in both houses, they know the health benefits of their older house. They know the quality of life in their older house. Like they have much more complaints in their new house that यहाँ पे हमारे पैर दर्द होते हैं, ये पुराना घर बहुत अच्छा था, बहुत ठंडा था,
गर्मी नहीं होती है. हाँ, मतलब गर्मी होती है अभी, तो यहाँ पे गर्मी नहीं होती थी. In spite of the older houses having smaller windows, smaller niches, अंदर घर ठंडा रहता था और गर्मियों में ठंडा रहता था, सर्दियों में वार्म रहता था. तो that kind of they don't see the same thing happening there. But then there are these aspirational projections that we have pushed down. And we are also not happy, and we are also जो खुश है उनको भी we are kind of pulling down.
So again coming back to sustainability and functionality and aesthetics. So our role is to make so architects or designers' role is to make a house look aesthetic, to make a house look beautiful, or maybe functional also for that matter. So in your case, how does this balance work out?
So basically in our case the material works for us. Like it is a very timeless material if you see. If you ask me, it is like your mother's really that soft cotton old sari which never goes out of style, out of fashion, which stays timeless. It's like that only. So when you see nowadays, if you see, many people are actually bringing back that style into interior styles, and they're creating this mood boards, Greek architectural inspired, or Jaipur architectural inspired. So all of this is just this, a timeless style. So material works very well for it. Apart from that, the whole space is very natural. All materials are nature inspired materials, so they all go, that colors all go with each other very well.
But again, speaking of sustainability now as a trend, but actually, what do you think about that? That it's not like something which is going to come and go. You just said it's timeless. So
Right.
what about, would you want to highlight on that?
So the thing is कि it would make much more sense if अगर हम इसको एक ट्रेंड की तरह ना देखें, and we look at it as a part of a lifestyle, then only it's going to be truly sustainable. क्योंकि ट्रेंड की तरह trends come and go. This is going to be forever. So that's the thing.
And it's actually was there, is there, and will be there. It's that kind of.
It's just that awareness is required.
Awareness is required a lot.
And which you all are doing through your studio as well.
So from the day that when we were learning these things, when we just started out, we see a lot, like I see a lot of difference in awareness also. Ki people are much more aware, and they are asking for the right things now, and they're willing to get out of the comfort zone also. Ki yes, I want this kind of a finish or feel.
Any motivation or passion that still drives you to just keep going with this practice?
There's a lot more to learn into this practice, and we were talking about like awareness. So I'm happy to say that there are many firms now who are actually practicing into this field, who are doing really great work. And there are a lot of young people coming into and taking these things ahead. So I think the Thrive for Learning is the only source.
But what about your personal motivation? Like when did this DHIRTY hand story start?
So it's we kind of share a common journey in that. So we had a professor, architect Malak Singh Gill, so who has actually is our inspiration to follow this dream and path. तो बहुत interesting चीज़ था है कि he taught us an elective called ecology and architecture. So basically architecture को as a design ही नहीं देखना, but looking at it from a very holistic approach. कि हम अगर एक वुड से कुछ बना रहे तो वो वुड इतना साल लिया है उगने के लिए, इतना सारा कार्बन ट्रैप किया है. सो रादर देन बर्निंग इट एंड स्मेल्टिंग एंड मेकिंग स्टील आउट विथ टू बर्न दैट एंड for the steel industry, why not use the wood the same way and store that carbon in the wood in your house? So simple एक चीज़ है. So Malak sir used to take us to his sites. He used to teach his elective under a tree.
Wow.
Just a little.
I still have that. Well, that space near to a very close to our college. There was chai ka tapri. Behind that there was a huge tree. We used to have our elective over there with a cup of tea.
Yeah. So sometimes he used to do that, and he used to take us to his sites also to engage us with the material. कि कॉप का घर बना रहे थे सर, तो we were in the mud making कॉप, understanding the material itself. तो वो एक physical connection जो बन गया था, that was kind of very difficult to get out of, and it would that's what these hands-on workshops do to people.
Yeah.
Which we also like to share with people कि तुम जब तक हाथ नहीं डालोगे तब तक it will not take you in that journey.
And
the fun part of doing hands-on, it's a direct connect to a nature or that material.
Right.
So you actually understand the positive and negative of that material when you actually take it in your hands, you touch it, you feel it, you make things with it. We are lucky enough to have him as a mentor. We have done the elective. Also, we have done our thesis, which is very important part of
he was our guide and
as a very important part of your architectural educational years. So, and the last, you can say, summarize of your whole education, what you have learned in last 5 years. So, we have done our thesis also under him, and we have done lot. Well, it was a.
She was actually very fortunate enough to get an opportunity to work with him on some projects. And when she was doing that, I was working at a place called Thanal, which is in Tiruvannamalai in Tamil Nadu. And there is a wonderful person whose name is Biju Bhaskar, and he has kind of revolutionized, you can say, the realm of natural building, because through research, teaching, documentations, and then practicing, making, experimenting, and then bringing it to people so that they can apply it to their own homes. So we both have our
separate
own experiences, but
the same field.
Culminating into this one space.
Nice.
It was good learning experience under sir as a in work also. Like as a teacher, I have experienced him in my educational years, but in my initial practice years, I have worked with him, and it was a great learning. Like I understood that you are no more greater in your field, or being architect will not give you any authority to say anyone that you are not worth. You have just degree. The people who are actually working for you are doing the work.
Right.
So it was learning for life, which I have learned from him. Respecting others who's working for you.
So basically being very honest to your roots.
Correct.
कि जहाँ आपने सीखा वही giving it back. Again, your story of how it's a cycle. So जहाँ से आपने knowledge लिया है उसको ही वापस आप दे रहे हो.
Right.
Good. And what about again coming back to
from this, so we had the teacher, but I cannot not give credit to Anushree, my dear friend, whom she introduced me to the natural paints and finishes.
Okay.
Of course, I've learned with her, we have used many things, but she is very keen on doing a lot of research on lime and development into. We have our whole one room in our studio where we keep experimenting on that another plaster material. We make lime floor, we make multiple experiments in our studio to see how it works, where it goes, where it fails. So we do keep doing all of this. So she is one of the inspiration for me.
That's very sweet of her to give credit, just to give credit to your co-worker, like gratitude to your own co-worker. But again, talking about materials now, like you all said, you all are experimenting with different materials. So this during this experimental journey, I feel a client has to be a part of it somewhere. Like ultimately, you all are building it for people. So how are they engaging with you guys? Like how are they, while you're experimenting, how are they supporting you? Or are they a part of those experiments?
So some of these experiments are like जहाँ पे थोड़ा risk, you would say, or failure is more, is we limit to ourselves. We don't try it on anyone. But something that has worked for us and our client is open to explore it with us, then we take it ahead, and it actually makes a lot of difference. So there was this one client in Nagpur. It was their idea. So they wanted to create a piece out of, an art piece out of Tendolkar. And they were sort of doing it on their own, but then I was supporting them through the journey of Tendolkar, learning. Tendolkar is a waterproof lime plaster, which is burnished and polished and high glossy. So they kind of created an art piece which belongs to their living space, and it has these different ombre shades of reds to pinks and then white. So that was an experiment for them, and we worked together and it turned out really beautiful. So things like these happen.
Also talking about materials, I think you mentioned that sometimes taking logical decisions is better than going with the conventional materials. So every time you all cannot be using mud and plaster. So what about that aspect? Like how do you all deal with that?
So sometimes we have to be a little practical on site. So we have to understand what will work for user, what is more logical here, and then we have to tweak some calls accordingly. So it might not be very sustainable option or maybe not a regional option, but it is practical, then we have to go for it.
Ma'am, would you like to add on it?
Yeah, so this brings us to a point where natural or sustainable का एक conflict होता है, whether something that is natural, is it sustainable, or are they overlap term? Are they interchangeable terms? So they aren't actually. For example, something that is naturally occurring, for example, say laterite, it is natural, right? But if I bring laterite and I say that Rajasthan mein I'll build with laterite, so will it be sustainable? It won't, because the people skill set is not there to understand laterite. It will not support the ecology of that space, the climate of that space. वो कहीं और से आने वाला है, उसका कॉस्टिंग अलग होगा, उसमें फ्यूल खर्चा होगा, एम्बॉडीड एनर्जी बढ़ेगा, कार्बन फुटप्रिंट बढ़ेगा. So even if it is natural, it's not sustainable. So there has to be an understanding of that kind of a material.
So basically you have to keep researching, you have to keep experimenting. So that's how your function. Okay. Are there any standards or certifications, laid down by the government that one must know before getting into this practice?
So honestly, there are IS codes, which building material के लिए IS codes काफ़ी है. चूने के लिए lime has, earth building has some. But when you look at standardization, actually kind of doesn't apply, because earth is different in every place. So there is a very clayey, expansive soils जो हम बोलते हैं, expand and contract होते हैं पानी के presence and absence में. So ऐसे है, lateritic soils है. So they have their different qualities, and even within those qualities, even in one small plot of land, you'll have different soils.
Agree.
So we cannot say कि हम standardize. It's just with practice and with working with a local person जिनको जानकारी है. कोई बूढ़े होते हैं गांव में, उनके साथ काम करना, that will kind of lead you to a better solution.
And we definitely follow few tests on site, like we check out on the mud, soil available over there. So we do some tests while starting the project.
Correct.
But it's very difficult to standardize the vernacular practices.
Okay. But what is a day in a life of someone like you practicing this kind of what's it like to be a designer who's into sustainability and these eco-sensitive practices?
It's tough to say, but I can tell you definitely she's here for a week and she's traveling almost every other corner of Maharashtra in that week.
So that's a typical week in her life, that you're just traveling, going to different
places. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So how do you see this culminating every design aspect? How do you see this leading on to the future? Like, what does the future hold for this kind of a practice?
Lot of more experimentation is required to kind of keep building on to this understanding. क्योंकि क्या है, there's a breakage in the link from पुराने ज़माने में जो follow करते थे, even in the material aspect with the practice. हम अभी fresh refresher course कर रहे हैं, ऐसा है. So lot of experimentation and understanding is required. So if someone is kind of starting off now or is willing to get into this, I would personally say कि उसमें हाथ डालो and start working and learn from your failures. There'll be many and they'll teach you more. That's how I have also learned.
I feel we have to start building a trust into these materials. Exploration is much more required now. And it's time to go back to basics.
Yeah.
It's time to go back to your roots again.
Absolutely.
I think that's what the world demands now. Okay, you have to be a little more careful. You have to be a little more sustainable. You need to be a little more sensitive towards the designs which were previously made and just take up from
Very
them.
important part of what you just said, that as I think we have spoke about it also, that any sustainable design requires planning, which is sustainable. Like you have to plan prior that design should be sustainable, then materials come into picture, then every aspect come into picture. So that is very important part of if a designer wants to start with a sustainable project, he has to start with sustainable planning, I feel.
Right.
Ma'am has summarized this for us really well. Thank you so much, Nikita Mahale ma'am and Anushree Tendolkar, for being on my podcast.
Thank you so much for inviting us and giving us this opportunity and platform to share.
Thank you.
all our
Thank you so
insights.
much.